You are listening to the Level Up Your Gaming Podcast, episode 137, Virtual Tabletops. In today's episode, we discuss various virtual tabletop systems. We cover the big three, Fantasy Grounds, Roll20, and Foundry. We discuss their various pros and cons as we cover these three VTTs. If you'd like to participate in the discussion or leave us feedback, you can contact us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. If you like the content and want to hear more of the show, subscribing will ensure you don't miss an episode. New episodes come out almost every Wednesday. Also, please review, tell a friend about the podcast, or share with your gaming group. Now sit back and enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Level Up Your Gaming Podcast. My name is Aaron, and joining me virtually once again, I've got Josh. Josh, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. How are the holidays treating you?
They're going pretty good. I actually had some family in town last weekend because obviously everyone was sick over Thanksgiving, and so my sister-in-law just couldn't stand to wait to see the baby later on, so she came right back like 2 weeks later, and so had the niece here, which is really nice to see her because the last time I saw her was about the time that she was the age of my daughter right now, so. It's like that 4-month transition to kind of see like where the baby is going to be in that much time, and then you can't kind of move on from that. But no, the weekend, I'd say the weekend was fairly jam packed, full of people because they were in town, and then this coming weekend, has some parties and stuff that we're going to, and so on. So. But overall, the holidays have been good. How about yourself?
I'm getting by. I'm not seeing nearly as many people. I think all of that's still slated for the end of the month. But I get to see people here and there. I do a lot of these virtual meetings. I've got people I see all around the place just because they're like in different states and whatnot. And I think that's really nice. So I can actually still spend some time with people that I put pants on.
Always a nice little feature there. So.
No, but we've got like a ton of things planned for the holidays. And like from here on out, it is just jam packed into the end of the year. So it's nice just to be able to sit and relax and, meet with you. I know it's virtual. I haven't met the baby yet. But,
well, that'll probably happen early in the new year. We're trying to find a date to come on over and actually come see you over one of the days, and then also
no rush, man, no rush.
Well, we'd like to come over and see you. I think it'd be nice to do something. We'd probably have to come over earlier than we usually do because you have to get her back. She starts to turn into a pumpkin around this hour. So.
Well, I'm kind of happy that we are able to do this, even though it is virtual. And this is something that's kind of been on my mind, and something I'd like to talk about today is the way that we can game virtually.
Well, this is actually I've always used virtual tools for a very long time since Jared. So what Jared and we always used to do in my group is there always used to be a whiteboard. Okay, Jared started with this little whiteboard that was called the battle card. Okay, and there was a much larger whiteboard which became the battle board. And it's just like at a tabletop where you've got your map tiles on the that little map grid that you have there, and you can draw up a dungeon real quick. And so that was the idea behind it. But as time evolved, Jared wanted more intricate maps, and he wanted to be able to share them with us. And so with technology, what we turned to was utilizing one of the virtual tabletop tools to kind of display the map to everybody in a virtual sense. And we all interacted on the same map, and he had his GM screen behind him. And then since then, we've continued to evolve with it, where now everybody's a laptop. So we each have our own interaction to the screen itself, but it also allows us to bring in Brian, who's out of state, who's been part of our group forever. He's able to now tabletop with us every weekend because we have these tools. And really the key beyond the tools themselves, and I've talked about this in the past with online gaming, is as long as your sound is good, meaning you can communicate like really well with like headsets,
Yeah.
you're golden. Some of these have integrated sound in them. Make sure that you have good audio because that's the key to successful online gaming, even more so than these tools themselves. The tools are great, but the audio is the key to online gaming.
Yeah. Like I want to talk about the virtual tabletops, but I do want to take a moment just beforehand. Like I know that some of them have the built-in chats and stuff like that, but man, Zoom or Discord is like so much better just for the audio and the chat rooms and stuff. I just find it.
Discord, if you don't have Zoom, because Discord's free and it's a voiceover. I mean, it's used for gaming. That's what most
Mhm.
people use it for. I mean, it's a great online tool.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So
But yeah,
definitely gets my recommendation.
sorry, I totally digressed off the topic, which is you want to talk about the actual virtual tabletop tools that people
Mhm.
use.
Well, no, like whiteboards and being able to build the maps and stuff like that. That is integral to the virtual tabletop system. Is that what I started with? I started way back paper gaming. Theater of the mind, just in a basement, reading from books and stuff like that. And we rarely, if ever, had any maps. And when they were set up, they were like, it was an event and it was built on a table, and you go and you do the whole thing because it was the big bad at the end of the story, right? And before the pandemic, we had started up a D&D game, and we were doing it tabletop and drawing maps out on the table. I've got some battle maps, the white, the dry erase marker kind.
Yeah, you had like the grid ones, I think,
Mm-hmm.
with and you
Yeah,
could just dry erase on them. And I think you were building a la like Hero Quest. You were building your own map tiles too.
I have those, which was MDF, and then you glue on some styrofoam and draw in the map tiles on top of that and paint them. It works great, but that was a lot of effort for what I was doing. Um, and then pandemic hit, and people still wanted a game. They still wanted to meet up, so we switched to doing the game virtually. And I found some really nice systems out there, and was able to sort of pick and choose which ones we want to play with. But after a couple of years of this, I've got a lot of feedback from my players on what systems they like and what they don't like and what they like about them. And because I've done a lot of the custom work, building at the stories, building items, maps, stuff like that. I've got my own feelings about these tabletops, and I think that that's a very important thing for people to think about, especially if you're going to be doing these virtual games. You're going to be doing them online. Um, each one of these systems has pros and cons, and whichever one is going to be best for your team, your players, and you is the one that you should be trying for. The three that I've worked with are Roll20, tried and true. Everybody's played on it. Fantasy Grounds, which has been around for ages. It's a steadfast, powerful system with its own issues. And Foundry VTT, which is one I haven't run a game on yet, but I've recently picked up and have been playing with, and I'm very happy with my early results.
I have only played on two of those. Primarily, I play on Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds. That's like the quintessential D&D one because it's sort of built in with the D&D stuff. And I did play a game on Fantasy Grounds, and I have very pointed opinions on that. I think if we can get into each one of them, and maybe we start there because that's the one I think most people, when they hear virtual tabletop, you're probably playing D&D. I mean, it's kind of the most popular system out there. That's probably the one that you're using. Fantasy Grounds if you could unlock all of its potential, okay, if only you could open that Pandora's box of problems that what one, you have to have a very competent GM who knows exactly how to uh, upload assets into it and really make the full use of how like the lighting and stuff works in it, and make sure that the tokens are appropriately done. Because basically it is like if I uploaded my entire character sheet into an online thing and it leveled up and worked just like integrated in this thing, it would be, that would be Foundry. They're not Foundry. That'd be Fantasy Grounds. And the problem is that the one time I played under it, it just it lacked in so many things, because like the capabilities weren't unlocked. Like I couldn't move my, beyond being able to move my tokens, I couldn't create a cone of where I was casting. I couldn't show the area of where I was going. I couldn't. The person who was working with it could never hide his maps, so you could see the entirety of the dungeon and every monster that was in it. And then the bigger, like, kind of overarching map, you couldn't actually ping anything on the map. So you'd have to draw on the map, and then you'd have to erase it later. And like, good luck. Sometimes you could draw, sometimes you couldn't draw. And then there's constantly, every week there's updates to it. And every week it would break something that worked the week before. And it just...
and so like, there's some things in Roll20 that does great. There's some things that Fantasy Grounds does great, and you haven't seen Foundry. So I think let's start with Fantasy Grounds is the one that I've had the most experience running games on.
It sounds like you've unlocked more of the potential.
I have.
Fantasy Grounds.
But I've gotten some decent feedback also on it. So the big thing with Fantasy Grounds, Roll20, Foundry, they are both, the way that the users interface it, the way your players connect to it, is by going to a website. With Fantasy Grounds, like you said, there's updates. It is its own application. You have to download an application and connect to your, there's a server that your
there's a server
game
that hosts
master
all
will
the
set up.
games.
Yeah. And so when they do updates, you have to make sure that you get those updates. Otherwise, you'll be on a different version. You won't have connection things will be weird. The nice part about Fantasy Grounds is the same thing that's also really nice about Roll20, is that they have the books. So if you want to get a game system, you want to get a pre-made adventure, if you're playing D&D and you want to get the monster manual and the dungeon master guide, and you want to get Tasha's Cauldron or Fizbin's Dragon, whatever the hell it is, they're all there. And you can buy them, official copies. The whole thing is downloaded, all the artwork, all the assets, all the tokens, all the monsters, all the background stuff to make your characters work. It's all in there. It's really nice. Roll20, I think, is like straight cost, and Fantasy Grounds runs sales every now and then. So you can just wait until things are on sale and get like 20 to 30% off. I got a bunch of stuff through there. It's pretty nice. So having the system sort of prompt and walk you through everything is really good if you set it up properly. They've got like a character generator out of the box for D&D at least, where you go in and just, pick and choose and do your leveling and all that stuff. It's really nice. It does have ways to sort of track your assets and put them in folders so you could build your stories and chapters and work through the different levels. Your notes can link to other notes, and to character sheets and to tables. You can do all your rolling and stuff like that through there. Your maps can be built directly into those notes, and you click on them and it opens the map up. You can share them with your players. It's all really good if you spend a ton of time setting and configuring things up. Otherwise, it's very hidden. All these little bits and pieces are hidden all over the place.
Yeah, I feel like if you build your entire campaign, so this is going to be true for at least Fantasy Grounds and Roll20. Foundry, I have no idea because I haven't used it, but for Fantasy Grounds, if you build your campaign completely in Fantasy Grounds, I imagine it could be very useful because the stuff I've seen in terms of tutorials and how it works seems like this is a great tool. But yeah, it does have the downside of it being that application. It does have the downside of you always needing to get the right updates because if your GM's on a different set of updates, you're right, you're stuck, you're screwed. You can't do anything.
Yeah.
And I mean, we never actually used the integrated books in there, but it's nice that it sort of is like that chest that you could unlock.
Yeah, and it's not just D&D. They have a lot of other systems too. They've got some space systems. They got some. They don't have nearly the amount of systems that you see in Roll20. Have you gone through and taken a look at all of the various systems that Roll20 has?
I haven't. I've looked at all the character sheets that are available because that's usually what they support is the systems there, and they've got an insane number of them. Like, I mean, Roll20 is so. Again, we want to go into the Roll20 side of things. This is the one that I use primarily. So my biggest pro for using Roll20 over using a Fantasy Grounds is if you're not going to unlock all the features the Fantasy Grounds has to offer, Roll20 is a lot more basic for just sharing and displaying maps. Okay. It is also, if you utilize it correctly, the character bar, they aren't really assets, but they're sort of like descriptions and stuff. You can really utilize that to kind of be a journal that you are constantly sharing with your players of like NPCs and notes and things of that nature. So you can do a lot with it. It's probably it's not as intricate as the Fantasy Ground side of things. It's not as clever with like how you open the maps, like where you can click on an asset and it'll open up the maps. You have to move the players across to different maps. Roll20 has a terrible problem with their zoom functionality, which I put in a bug request 2 years ago. It got denied to fix the zoom slider, and it's just it's atrocious. The zoom slider is terrible.
It never centers me on my character. I'm always stuck. It opens up a new map and it's always black on the screen, and you're like, all right, let's zoom all the way out.
But zooming out doesn't even work. They can't figure out how to do that. I don't understand why. It's been the most busted thing, and then they've invested all their time developing this dynamic lighting for the premium tier. And don't get me wrong, I have one of the premium subscriptions for Roll20. The dynamic lighting is really cool. It's amazing. It's a lot of fun if you use it correctly. But in terms of like what I'd rather have, really awesome dynamic lighting or something that allows me to zoom out of a whiteboard appropriately and correctly. I'd rather the latter. But they, aside from that, as a bare bones system, if you're just going to put maps on a page and let players look at maps, it is a very, very useful. It's just a very useful system because you can insert, in terms of like the characters, any token that you want to represent them, and they can drag and drop them onto the map. And so if they've got full access and control, they can move them around easily. You can tell them exactly where to put it. They've got really good intuitive pinging tools, which allows you to actually point at things on the map easily. So that's one of the things I really like about it. And also they have an integrated audio player for music.
That is definitely something Fantasy Ground does not have.
They used to have it for free. They actually do have it for free, but they had it for they had a better one, and then they dropped SoundCloud, or maybe SoundCloud died. I don't remember what happened. It's some other integrated one that they had where you were able to upload them on this other site, but I think the site went down, and then so they finally had to build their own one, and it's not terrible. Sometimes it's a little buggy, but it's not terrible.
Yeah, we've done the sound thing in Roll20. That's the one game I play when I'm not DMing. We're doing it in Roll20. When I am DMing, I had been doing it in Fantasy Grounds, and I think from now on I might be moving to Foundry. And we're talking right now about the books and the maps mostly. Foundry does not have a store. And this is the big issue I've got with Foundry is that it doesn't have like a community store or like an official store where you can go and buy a system. So you can't buy a book, you can't buy, a rule set, you can't buy a compendium or any of that stuff. It's entirely based off of what has the community sort of built. So for D&D, you can get the SRD, you can get the base version, which has the core rules, but then it's sort of up to you to put in all the extra stuff. What it does do is it has all that dynamic lighting. It's got all of the audio. It actually has dynamic audio where you can actually just drop in audio as like little clips and into parts of the map. So if you walk past a fire, you can hear the fire crackling. If you're playing a more modern game, you can actually like have a radio playing as you walk past it and hear the radio. And those things can be blocked by walls too. So, it's very dynamic. It's very nice. The zoom on each of them, yes. In Roll20, I never get in the right spot. It's always weird. Fantasy Grounds was better for that for me, but only because the way I was setting up maps was, here is the edge of the map. You only see the top to the bottom, the side to the side. The part that you're being shown is the map. It's sort of like its own separate little window. So you don't have to worry about, an infinite amount of blank space before and behind the map. You're just always on that one part. Foundry is a lot more like Fantasy Grounds in that sense. But it has the nice parts of Roll20. It's got the nice parts of Fantasy Grounds. It does look like there's a lot more setup still. I don't mind the setup, going through and configuring everything. So I think that's not going to be a problem for me. I could see that being more of an issue for somebody they just want to get in and start playing a game. I'd say go with either Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds if you're just planning on playing a pre-made. Those are going to be the easier ways to do it.
Yeah, I'd have to know more about. I mean, it sounds like Foundry is. I mean, those are some really cool features, being able to dynamically add sound and stuff to it. It sounds like there's a lot of very interesting technical things that the community has been able to put together, which is nice. An open source type, virtual tabletop is different than having like something where Roll20, which is a closed company, that's relying upon subscriptions from users to get stuff done, and you basically are sort of at the mercy of of developers to say that this is worth the time and effort to do it. And when you're when they're now a profitable company, you have to be, they've got employees that they need to keep employed, so they're going to put tools together that make sense.
Well, that's also one of the things that I've been playing with Foundry with. You talk about out of the box, okay? Roll20, you've got like the 3 tiers, right? You've got your basic, which just gets you access. You can go and do stuff, but you don't get the dynamics. You get very limited space. You can store stuff. Your access is minimal, and you can't share your books with your players. Your mid tier, where you can share your books with the players that are in your game, I think 1 game at a time or something.
I don't actually use the books there. We have the books all in PDF from Drive Through RPG, and we just share them that way. But I'd say that like if you are going to use the books directly on there, and again maybe there is advantages to that in terms of being able to look up rules and stuff like that. Maybe there's a quicker way that's integrated with that. I would say that get them right on the site itself. I mean, like go for it. Have a good time and utilize them there and get the right. Again, if you're going to pay for something, get the right tier of what you want to be able to support the type of GMing and DMing you need to do. The key is that the DM is the one who has to have the premium account.
Yeah.
That's who's going to have all the bells and whistles when you're doing the game. Your players can all be free accounts to look at your game, enjoy the game, and play in the game. And you can. I did it for a while. You can certainly make wonderful free games from Roll20. I don't know if Fantasy Grounds has any cost associated to it.
It does. For just the DM, you buy. It's either a monthly subscription or a one-time cost to buy the ultimate package, or there's two tiers or three. That's here. Let me start that sentence over again. There's the exact same structure as you would see with Roll20. There's a free, they call it a demo. If you got a free account, then you can log into somebody's account if they've got ultimate. If they don't have ultimate, then you can only access the mid tier if you're also a mid tier.
Oh no, that makes sense. I remember now because I have a free account. I was able to play on the GM's game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now, Fantasy Grounds is the most expensive version of all these. So if you get the ultimate version and pay for it outright, but if you pay for it outright, it's a one-time cost. If you could also pay, like I said, a monthly subscription, you'd be hosting the game on their server. With Roll20, I believe it's only a monthly subscription, right? And you only play on their servers.
Yeah, they've got a monthly or an annual subscription for it. Annual, you save a couple months worth of.
Yeah, but then you got to do it again next year. Whereas with Fantasy Grounds, if you buy it, you got it. You're done.
Yeah.
Foundry is you buy it, and you're done. And only the DM has to buy it. I think it's like $50, one-time fee. But the way that you're hosting games is a little different. With Foundry, they have instructions on their website on how to do port forwarding so that your players can connect directly to your computer, which can be a little daunting for people if they don't know how to do that sort of thing. They do have directions. It's fine if you're technical. If you're not technical, they do offer a monthly fee to host it on their server.
Are you telling me that Foundry is kind of like the Linux of these three?
I haven't even gotten into the community built plugins. Yes, it is exactly the Linux of these things. It is definitely a more technical work and requires more setup, but looks really cool when it's done right. It is a thing.
Well, I mean, it is nice that they have that option. I mean, it's a subscription then to be able to have them host it, but you know, it makes things easier than, you know, if you aren't as tech savvy to be able to do like the port forwarding and all that stuff. So, you know, there's good options there.
Even if you do have port forwarding, I mean, I've got a decent connection going out, but a lot of people connecting in, especially if I'm hosting sound files and video files, you know, and I've got a bunch of people connected at once, that can really sort of drag things down. And if I'm trying to do, you know, I'm connected to do the audio where I'm talking and I'm, you know, trying to actually tell my story, well, then we start getting some pretty decent lag. Hosting it is very nice. And the option to do that for a cost is also pretty nice. It is still cheaper if you buy the game and then host on their servers. It's cheaper than Roll20's premium subscription.
I mean, yeah. I mean, Roll20's premium subscription is the middle tier one, which is what I have, is $50 a year. So, you know, what's your hobby worth to you? I mean, again, if you're the DM, you know, you might be willing to put up the cost for that. But if you want to get like a premium, you know, have a Zoom that doesn't have to cut out every 45 minutes or whatever, you know, that's like, you know, another $100. You know, these things start to add up. So, you know, you can make things work with free options here, and these are all really nice. but you could also do the same thing with like virtual whiteboard as
Yeah.
well.
Oh,
So
absolutely. If you're doing theater of the mind, if you're doing like, you got your own books, or you've got your character sheets, you've sent out PDFs, and people are, going through that. Um, all of these things would be excess. They're great for if you're doing maps and you've got your character sheets built in, and you drag and drop your monsters onto things. It's a visual experience. And when I'm looking at the VTTs, well, I'm looking for, three things. I want to be able to tell my stories. I want my players to be able to enjoy the experience, and I want them to sort of have that experience be engaging to them. And so if you're looking for that full package, I can tell my stories in any of these things. Some of them it's a little harder to set up, uh, but it gives me more options. Um, Wanting my players to enjoy the experience, that's where I've had some feedback from at least Fantasy Grounds and Roll20, and I'm looking to get that feedback from Foundry soon. The feedback I got from Fantasy Grounds was centered around two things. One, it was the way that dice work, which is an hilarious complaint. For you to show a dice roll, you have to click the dice, just click it, don't move your mouse, just click it. Or if you do move your mouse, you have to drag it over to the chat window. Otherwise, it'll just bounce around your screen and you'll see the roll, but no one else will, including your GM. So if he asks you to roll for something and you click and drag it, but don't drop it in the chat window, and max 20, roll it, perfect, but it didn't make it into the window, it doesn't count because nobody saw it.
I thought that you could just throw it anywhere that's outside the map. Because maybe the way it was set up with ours was different. So, but no, I remember some places on the map, some places on the board, it wouldn't display, and then other places it would display. And it does have a cool, like, with Fantasy Grounds, they've really integrated that like virtual die look, so you can see the dice rattling around, and you can stack dice with like the right click, so you can like throw like 100 d20s. It really is obnoxious.
It's very nice, yes. Well, and you can do, there's I thought there was a plugin for Roll20 to do a virtual
Roll20 does have a virtual dice thing. The thing that I really like with Roll20, I don't even use the virtual dice, is that you can just type, they have macros for all their rolling. And one of the really nice things, so playing White Wolf, there's a botch system. Being able to write a macro that automatically deducts like ones, or when I played, we didn't even use the Roll20 or anything for this, but I used it to roll my dice because I didn't want to have to roll an obnoxious number of dice when I played 7C. I could write a macro that did the keep dice, so I could roll 10 keep 3, or like 3 keep 4, whatever it is. And in that system, 10s explode, so you can re-roll 10s, and like you can create a macro that does that for you, and so you just end up with the right dice thing. So I could be like, okay, so what am I rolling? Okay, cool, roll it, click, okay, I got 27, like easy peasy. Or if I roll the macros for the dice for White Wolf, I can roll my 10-sided dice, and I can just say I have 3 successes. Like I don't have to think about how to calculate that or work through it, especially when you get into large dice pools. Like when you're doing 10, 20 dice, like there are some times that can happen. It's not worth you end up with more of a headache trying to like match up your dice and trying to figure out, like, it's just not worth it.
Yeah. Fantasy Grounds has got some of that stuff in there, but if you want to do, like, you can build macros, but then you got to like share them. They're not like typing them in. Foundry does both. They've got the virtual dice, they've got the drag and drop from the character sheets, you can type it in. It's like literally they're trying to do everything. And I kind of like that because you want to type in whatever you want. You want to build your macro, write it, fine. You can even drag it to like a hot bar and just keep it there as a hot bar item and just press the button every when you need to. It's really well designed.
What was the other complaint that you got about Fantasy Grounds?
With the dice specifically was under advantage, disadvantage, or cover and stuff like that. Was that there's like a small little section on the bottom of the screen next to where the dice is, where you can like click on different buttons, and then your next roll would be with those options. So whenever you're doing advantage, you got to go and click the advantage, then click the dice, then drag and roll it in. But if you're rolling an attack from your character sheet, that means you've got to have your character sheet open. You got to go down to the desktop, click the advantage, go back to the character sheet, drag the attack into the window. If you didn't make it into the window, you lose the dice roll, you lose the advantage, you got to re-roll, but now it's not with advantage. So it's a pain in the ass. With Roll20, we've got the game we're playing right now, D&D. It's got the character sheets in it. And so when you've got the character sheet up, it has the buttons for advantage or disadvantage before you roll on the character sheet. It's nice. In Foundry, when you click to roll something, it pops up a little window and says, okay, are there any options with this roll? Do you have advantage? Is there situational? Type them in now and then hit the button and we'll roll it for you. It like prompts you as you go. If there's nothing, you just click, and you're done.
So it's a little bit more intuitive in that regard.
Yeah.
I mean, it's again, you sort of like we can nitpick all these what's here.
That's really what it is that there's a lot of nits to pick between these different systems.
The key with any of these is that you want it to be, you want to be able to tell the best story that you can from them. You want your players to not feel like they're having to spend an arm and a leg, which in your player side of things, they don't really have to spend anything. And you
I want them to enjoy the experience.
Yes.
I want them to go into a tabletop and I want them to not have to fight with the interface. And I want them to just focus on the story being told. And I think that when it comes to the maps, we've had complaints with Roll20 and with Fantasy Grounds with both of their the lighting systems. And the complaints that we've gotten have been that if you're using the dynamic lighting and the dynamic visuals, then anytime you are like behind a pillar or behind a wall, the rest of the map is black. Even if you've seen it before, there's no like showing things off in the fog of war, unless you
the fog of war page. Is I mean, which again represents that you can't see around the corner.
Yes.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Foundry has done a different thing, and I kind of like this, and I'm waiting to see how this works in the system. Is that when you first come into a map, yes, it's black. You can only see what you can see, but as you explore, the fog of war lifts in those areas. You can't see what's happening past a wall in a room you've already been to, but it's no longer black. It's now grayed out. It's sort of like you can still see that part of the map without having,
Oh no, they do have that in Roll20, but if you use dynamic lighting, you can't integrate the two pieces together.
They've got it integrated. So it's all built together. It's really nice that way. Yeah. So you can even see, just because you can't see inside of a thing, if there's a light inside of it and a window, you can see the light coming out. You can still see inside. It's same thing with the audio. They've got the dynamic audio still works. The fog of war is really nice when set up properly. And that's the other complaint that I've had is that, dice stuff and map stuff, because my players are going in and they are being taken out of the experience because they're having to fight with the interface or not seeing where other people are. I absolutely love the ping feature in Roll20. Um, I think there's one in Foundry. I have not. It does not work in Fantasy Grounds. You do have to like draw little things on the map. It's kind of a pain.
Yeah. So again, I think they're all good options. I would say for me, in terms of like if you just want to pick up and play something, I'd highly recommend Roll20 because it's just easier to kind of just get stuff rolling and started.
Mm-hmm. And
Less.
if you haven't DM'd before, or if you want to get into it, or if you've only done it, on a paper game, on a tabletop, if you're doing your first VTT, Roll20, because you can go in there and you can
Run a game as a free account. I mean, there's
yeah.
no money down. You can basically try it out. I think there's a lot of appeal to it in terms of what you're looking for in the long run. I don't know if that's going to meet your needs. It has met it for my group overall, but experiment, look at them, look at the pros and cons to them. I think we've listed some of them here, but if you're gonna run a game, the key is that you need to really learn the interface that you're working with. Your players are probably just going to be dragging and dropping their tokens and rolling dice. As long as you can explain that to them fairly easily, that's not so hard. But for you, in order to make it an enjoyable experience for them, you need to put in a lot of effort into building your game. And I would, early on when we used Roll20, we would sort of do like a dual thing in terms of building a game where I build the game outside of Roll20. I just put assets in there. In the long run, it's always better just to put the assets in there and not share some of the assets, like some of them are for yourself as GM notes and stuff. But as long as if you build the game starting with the VTT, you will probably be successful in the long run with the VTT. Going forward, if you're trying to build a different game and just drop maps into the VTT, then it's kind of like you're only using half. You're not even using a quarter of the power of what they have to offer, and it becomes more of this chore of you trying to navigate. Which map should I be on, and what's going on with the VTT. Like, it's like if you gave everyone character sheets and then you told them just log in so you can view this. Like, okay, if you want to roll dice outside of it, sure, roll dice outside of it, but it does detract from the usefulness of the tool itself.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really the big things is knowing your system. Yeah. Fantasy Grounds takes a little bit of effort to learn how the systems work, but you can build something really nice in there. And Foundry, I'm still learning it, but everything I've seen so far, I've been really happy with. It also looks like it's a lot of work to set up, but it has a lot of the features that Fantasy Grounds didn't. And it has those community plugins, which are going to be really fun and interesting to play with. We'll talk about those later, Aaron. Because there's a billion of them and there's no way we're ever going to talk about them here. But
we're running out of time on the episode.
Oh, yeah. And, but it's really your player's enjoyment.
We can do a deep dive on Foundry. Maybe I'll have to dig into it and we can come back to it, because
let me run the game for a little bit first. I want to get some player engagement on this thing too.
I'll tease that as an episode that you can listen to in 20-ish episodes. So we'll talk.
There you go.
We'll talk about a deep dive on Foundry and what it's got to offer.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially since I'm not running D&D on it.
Exactly.
I'm going to be running Cyberpunk on that thing. And that in itself is a very interesting setup. So,
all right, then. Well, do you have anything else you want to add to the subject?
Oh, no, I could talk about this for ages. But yes, we should be good.
Okay. So that's going to wrap us up for the week. If you've used any of these online tools, Roll20, Fantasy Grounds, Foundry, if you like certain things about them, dislike certain things about them, let us know. levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. Also, the podcast is on YouTube. I promise it's still on YouTube. I will put The episodes are all uploaded. I just have to add the tags and stuff. I promise they'll be on YouTube. So smash that like button when these episodes drop. You'll get like 6 of them in a row. And then otherwise, recommend this to a friend. Review the podcast. Subscribe. All that good stuff. And that'll wrap us up for the week. So for Josh, I'm Aaron. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye.